Moet er iemand mij introduceren? Of, Oké, cool. Ik ben geen diva gelijk Freek. Ça va? Okay, cool. Hi, I'm Frederik. First of all, I want to thank the organizers for providing actually the piano. I was kind of a joke, but they provided it anyway. I'm not going to use it, but thanks. Okay, cool. This is my talk. I just became a team lead. Now what? This talk is a bit with audience participation. So let's fire off some questions. Are there any team leads in the audience? Okay, cool. Okay. Any aspiring team leads? Oh, there you go. Eyes on the prize. Okay, so small disclaimer, your mileage may vary. What I mean with that, the things I've experienced in my career as a team lead, team manager, CTO, whatever, uh, bit might be totally different than yours, but this is just my take. Take it as you want. Okay, so this statue of a man, that's me. Frederik van Brabant, you can find me on the socials, maybe Frederick. I have a blog which I haven't updated in years, frederikvanbrabant.com, and I'm a keyboard for hire. What do I do? Currently, I'm an enterprise architect. If you don't know what that means, neither do I. You can get me next time or something, and I'll do another talk about that. So, okay, becoming a team lead. Let me talk to you. Let's talk through these steps of a career, maybe a bit. So this might look a bit familiar to you. This is typically and maybe a bit conservatively the way a typical company is structured. You have junior developers, you have media developers, you have senior developers, team leads, and then you have the kings of the castle. Okay, so when I first started as a junior developer, it was all very new to me. And one of the first things I realized is what actually is a junior developer. So maybe are there some people in the audience who would like to give it a step? What is a junior developer for you? This is the audience participation part. No? Okay, I'll just fill it in myself. That's someone who just graduated from school or boot camp or self-taught, just joins a company and, well, tries their best. Very, very scary period in your life. If you're a developer, you might remember it. Uh, and that's generally what you do. You jump in, you have hopefully a backup net from people more experienced than you, and they coach you through the code bases and how clients work and all those kind of things. And then maybe after a few years, or maybe after a few months or whatever, you might become meteor developer. Now, meteor developers? No? Someone with a little bit of experience. In my opinion, yes, it's definitely true. Uh, they're typically seen as more better developers. What does better developer mean? They're more technically profound, like they can dive deeper into code, but what I think is more important is they have more social skills. They think bigger in company, in project size. They might come to a problem in the same code base as a junior developer and spot, this part, okay, if we change this, then this might not translate all that well to a different point in the application. Also, maybe this is not what the customer might want or stuff like that. Okay, and then over to the more prestigious one. It's always looked at as like a pinnacle one, a senior developer. What's a senior developer to my peeps here? Yeah, sure. Okay, what does that mean? Okay. Okay, I like that. I really like that one. That's one you might hear a bit more, which I definitely agree with. But how I see a senior developer is actually the same as a media developer, just with more social skills, more soft skills. I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't met a lot of senior developers in my career. I've met a lot of media developers who are technically very good, but the bigger picture, like actually diving and looking at the code base and seeing where not only the code base changes, but also the company changes, and where we can maybe talk to customers in a better way or shape our company a bit more. That's for me a senior developer. Also, coaching, training, and sharing the knowledge. That's something that separates a senior developer from a media developer for me. People who like to write blog posts internally or externally, coach juniors, maybe medias, and like think at company level. That's for me a senior developer. Now, and then obviously we get to the team lead role, and this is in my career this was a bit of a strange one because a team lead, as I said before, a senior developer is one that thinks in client terms and does the social stuff and manages a bit without actually managing. So a team lead is what exactly more of that? That doesn't make really a lot of sense. Well, it's actually kind of a bit in the name. So if you look at the name of team lead doesn't have developer in their name anymore. They're not actually developers anymore, or maybe they are, but their main part of their job is no longer development. It's helping the development teams. They're also not above them. So I used to think that it's like this. It's actually more like this. They're not better than the people they're leading. They're helping, they're coaching the people who are next to them, whom are the developers. You're not the king of the developers. You're like next to developers and give them the tools they need to do their jobs as well, as good as possible. Also, your direct colleagues might no longer be the developers, might be the other team leads, the head of marketing, the head of PMO or whatever. So these are now your direct colleagues. So that's actually what I wanted to say, but now in a beautiful slide. Okay, cool. So um, this is obviously a very important one. Do you see yourself in that role? Because this is the typical treadmill of being a developer is media developer, senior developer, and then you graduate to team lead and whatever. But do you want to do that? Like, do you want to spend most of your time developing, or do you want to be more into the coaching and helping and doing a lot of PowerPoints and those kind of things? So that's a question you have to ask yourself. If not, there's no shame in that. There's obviously, as I said before, it's not a promotion per se. It's more like a different step in your career. Okay, cool. So enough blabber. Let's actually dive in and see what the life of a team lead is all about. So we're going to run through a little mock application, and we're going to start it together. So what's this all about? The first project we get in our team lead journey is Strava for wine sommeliers. It's kind of an alcoholic application, to be honest. So you track and compete in wine tasting. Okay, cool. That's fun. You think, okay, I can handle this. Doesn't seem all that complicated. This is the budget, 100,000 euros, and there's a time frame of 2 months. Again, bit of audience participation. What's the scary part on this slide? It's a time frame, you senior developers. So, okay, it's a time frame. So the 2 months, that's the scary part. The money, money is money. Okay, cool. So this is a tech stack your company likes to use. They use Vue and Blade for the front end. They have a beautiful Laravel backend and some Laravel CMS thingy that probably exists. They use MySQL and they run it all on a Docker DevOps kind of thing. Now, you're a developer. You go to a lot of conferences because you like to participate in the entire community kind of stuff. And you've seen so many PHP talks about tech stacks and stuff. And now you're like tech lead and you kind of like can maybe choose a bit more. So you think, okay, wait, you know what? There's this front-end developer, and she's always talking about how great React is and headless stuff. So you know what? For the next project, let's do a headless front-end in React. What about that? That's cool, right? And the Laravel backend, Laravel is cool and all, as we've seen today for fake. Um, why not? I've seen a lot of talk about like DDD and ports and adapters and this complicated architectural kind of cool stuff. Let's try the project in it because it's a small project. It's like a tracking tool for alcoholics. So we can do it in the DDD backend, right? It's not a lot of work. MySQL. Did you know that Oracle bought MySQL? Okay. And then Docker. Yeah, Docker is like for chumps. Yep. Let's go all the way. Okay, cool. And you look at this tech stack and you think, I'm going to write such a beautiful blog post about this. I'm going to get so many likes. That's super cool. But it's still my job, right? This might be a bit of overreaching. Okay, fixed it. Um, should be good. Okay, let's count this out. Okay, so this is the team. I said before, we're going to have two backend developers, one senior, one junior. It's cool. We have a senior developer. We're going to do a lot of DDD stuff and ports and adapters. That way, we have a junior developer, and the senior developer could teach the junior developer, and maybe at the end, we have a meteor developer. That's cool. We have a front-end developer, the one who wanted to try React, put your mouth where you put your keyboard where your mouth is, so you can do the project. And a part of DevOps, if things go bad, shouldn't go bad because we're still using Docker, right? Okay, cool. Let's count it out. So this is a bar. Well, it's a graph bar. It's not actually a bar. It's 100%. This is your remaining budget. Um, this is the point where I normally look at my speaker notes, which I currently don't have. So excuse the numbers. Okay, so a senior dev, backend dev work comes around 26% of that budget. For quick math people, you're smarter than me. Normally, I now say the number, but I don't really put it on the spot. Okay, the junior developer, yeah, we're kind of pulling this out of thin air here, would be 22%. Okay, cool. The Meteor front-end developer, 24. The DevOps work, 6% because it's only part-time and it shouldn't actually be a lot of problems. So counting this out, it should bring us with a net profit of 22% on our first project. We can do it ourselves. What do the what? Okay, so damn, you're pretty good at this stuff. 22K straight up profit. That's pretty nice. You're going to have like your first project as your new function, and you're going to make a ton of money here. That's nice. Okay, let's see how the project goes. So you're a good team lead, and you have a lot of things to do, which we're going to cover later. But you're going to do these other things, and then maybe at a few weeks later, many minutes later, you come back to the project and check it out. Well, we're now at the end of the project. How is everything going? So we still have the same bar, the 100%, and let's see how it goes. So the senior backend dev, actually, it turns out like the DDD stuff and the ports and adapters, it's kind of hard. Who knew? And it's like a different way of working. So I don't know what. Okay, but no problem. 31%. Um, the junior dev, well, if it was hard for the senior dev, it's really hard for a junior dev to do the DDD stuff. So, well, even more. The Meteor frontend dev, you can't see it here, but she actually did better than expected because it's a headless React application, which takes a bit of work back. That's nice. Plus, she was also really into the React stuff, so actually it kind of makes sense that it went better. The Docker stuff was still the Docker stuff because it was always the same. It's no longer 22% of straight up profit. It's now 16.7% straight profit. Okay, so you're not kind of good at this stuff. You're okay, I guess. But still, that's nice, right? Okay, cool. Your first project is now closing. Great. It's profits actually, because we still have to deduct some stuff, right? Because we still have like electricity, gas stuff. But is it profit? I don't know. We'll see. Okay, so you come to your new teammates because, as we said in the beginning, your teammates are now the other team leads, and you come talk to them, and there's a head of PO, a PM, and DevOps, and whatever. And you come to them and you say, "Okay, great, my first project, kind of miscalculated, went a bit south." And the head of project management says, "Yeah, I remember my first project. Yeah, it was like, oof, I also went overboard. It was really bad." And then the head of marketing was, yeah, miscalculation is something we all have to come to. And then you think, okay, right, right, right. Yeah, of course. Your first project. You also do projects? What kind of projects do you do? Well, we do kind of the same projects as you. We just did that the wine sommelier tracking thing, but I did the wine sommelier kind of tracking thing. Yeah, they also worked on that same budget. So here you have your budget. From that 100,000 is actually only 70%. The rest goes to design, marketing, and project management. So this turns into this, which is not great. Okay, we kind of really miscalculated here. Okay, so this was obviously a made-up story, which never happened to me, I promise. Um, what can we take away from this? Few PowerPoints. Get it? Because it's PowerPoint. First of all, software is expensive. 100,000 euros seems like a lot of money. Well, you actually blow through that pretty quickly because developers are obviously expensive. Quality costs a lot of money. We invested in the DDD stuff. We went kind of overboard, maybe kind of really went overboard. Uh, Discutable if it's really quality, if it's really, really worth it, whatever. But you invested into it, so it costs a lot of money. You're not an island. If you talk to the other team leads during the entire thing, you might have seen that other parts of the company are also working on the same project, which is, well, unavoidable, I guess. And communication could have solved all of this. Uh, Talking with the team more often, going to the stand-ups, doing actual one-on-one with the people, you would have got everything, like the problems that might have arisen during the development. All those things would have come forward when you actually have talked with them. Okay, cool. So, who knows this slide? It's one of those beautiful slides we're really proud of as a software developer. We come to a meeting and they say, "Oh, we want it fast, good, and cheap," and then you say, "No, I have this slide, and no, you can't have it good and fast. Well, it won't be cheap, and you can't have it cheap and fast, and it doesn't be good." We're really smug about it, but the thing is, we shouldn't be smug about it because we developers don't understand the slides. You know what a customer is actually looking for? They're not looking for good. Nobody's looking for good. They don't care. If you make your application fully testable, portable, super fast, that's really cool. But actually, they're just kind of looking for this kind of stuff. They don't care if you push a button that you promote 17Q workers, which all are fully tested and stuff. They don't really care about that. They just want it fast and they want it cheap. When can you get it and when can I get a profit out of this? So this is really a bit controversial. I'm not saying write crappy code, obviously, and do test your code, but look at it from the other perspective. Have some empathy with the customer. The customer doesn't know anything about your field. They don't know what testing code is. They barely know how a computer works. So it's really hard to be mad at them if they don't really sympathize you with we don't have enough time about writing tests and stuff. Yeah, of course, but they don't know what tests are, so they can't. It's really hard for them to charge them for them. So that's that part. Okay, this is another part of being a team lead is you have a team with you. The team is obviously very important for your successes. So it's very keen to keep them motivated. This is a bit of an awkward slide because this is my yoga feel good slide. I try to redesign it a bit, but it always comes out a bit cheesy. So bear with me here. This is a trust, honesty, and context kind of things, and these are super important when you work in a team and in general. Actually, what is this all about? So if you have a team, it's really important to like lay a lot of trust in them. So your team obviously full of intelligent people because you hired them. More on that later. Um, You can't do anything yourself, so everything yourself. So you have to, at some point, trust them to do their job. And the ownership brings quality. This is the entire agile set where you give ownership to people. People take it as their own personal quest, their own personal projects, and they grow with it. Not only experience, but also their as a person, and keep them motivated in that regards. So trust is an important, very important thing to lay on your team. Next up is the honesty part. Office politics. I'm currently enterprise architect. I work in enterprises, which is yeah, a lot of snakes. um, no, that's a joke, obviously. Obviously. Um, so office politics is something you really need to keep out of your teams. It's very easy to say that, but it's really hard to enforce that, I'm afraid. Admitting when you're wrong is also something that blooms a lot of trust between you and your team. So it's not only you trusting your team, it's also trying to get the honesty back from the team. Um, that's also actually the last point. If you don't, if you come to a situation, okay. Ah. If you come to the situation that they don't trust you to come forward with issues they have, for example, in the example we had in the beginning, um, if the project wasn't going all that well because they were struggling and they couldn't figure out the deeper technicalities, if they don't feel empowered enough to come forward with you and have the no blame culture where I want to like tell them we were running into some technical issues, then your project is going to be doomed. The context stuff, which is also a big part of the agile methodology, is that you tell people what they're actually building. If they don't really understand what they're building, then they might it might really kill a lot of motivation. Let me give you an example about this. Say, for example, you have a new big client that comes in, and they're not really all that familiar with your company and they kind of want to test you out. So they have a huge application they want you to build. But first they want to try you on like a small application, something really marketing sites, like 1, 2 pages with not a lot of logic there. And they just said we wanted to have it fast and cheap, as I said before. So you take that with the idea of we're going to develop this small application and then we're going to put it out there and then we get a cool big project. You go to your development team and you say, okay, you build this one, no tests, quick and dirty, just put it out there. You have 2 weeks. That's not going to bloom a lot of motivation. If you talk to them and say, okay, this is the situation. We have this small application, but there's a promise of a huge, cool application. So first, let's do this quickly, maybe a bit dirtily, and then we move on to the bigger application and we can really dive in and do all the cool stuff. That's an entire different story, right? And that's the context part. So that's also, you tell them why we're doing things and what we can expect from the future. It's a bit more work. It's a bit more keeping everyone in the loop. Some people don't like it because it's internal kitchen kind of stuff. I kind of disagree with that part. You get more feedback because you're not an island, as we said before. If someone says, pricks a hole in that idea, say, okay, but if we do it bad, then we never have the big project. Yeah, okay, you have some feedback on that, something you can keep in mind. And they know the constraints. They don't go overboard with that first project because the cool project is where you're going to go overboard. Okay, cool. This isn't only about software. This works on every level. It's again, it's a bit of a yoga slide. So you can bring it up next time in your drum circle. Okay, the trust, honesty, and context part. Okay, cool. Talking to clients. Talking to clients is really scary, and it's part of your new job. So I made a quick survival guide, 3 points. Um, so just keep in mind next time you're talking to a client. First of all, listen to them. Wow, groundbreaking stuff here. No, it's actually really important, and it's something developers kind of struggle a bit with. When you're going to a meeting room with them, and they tell you, okay, we want to have a search engine to search on our website. And then you're already thinking about, okay, maybe we can do like Elasticsearch or Solr, and then maybe we can have auto completion, and then If you debounce it, okay, cool, cool, cool. And we have this entire cool thing in our mind. That's not the thing they have in their mind. It's you're not listening to the problem. You're thinking, you're picking up the keyword search engine. You're thinking about the search engines. No, maybe their idea of a search engine might not have facets in them. It might be an entire different thing. It might not actually be a search engine, but you can only know that if you actually listen to them and go with them through the entire story with kind of an open eye, open mind, and listen to the actual problem and then start thinking in solutions. Don't promise extra. If they want to have a search engine and you're thinking, okay, a search engine with auto completion, blah blah blah, we can do that, and we can use Elasticsearch or Solr or whatever. It comes out of the box, and then you start developing it. First of all, you promise it to them because yeah, it's already out of the box. It's super easy. We have a module in Drupal, I assume. We have. um, so okay, and then you start developing it, and then it turns out that it actually didn't work. Then still the client is still going to expect all that stuff. You promised it in a meeting, and the funny thing about it is they're not going to pay extra for it because you promised it. It's out of the box, free of charge. Now you have to build it on your own time. It's very expensive. Write it down and mail it. This is like keep a paper trail. If you're in a meeting, one of the best things you can do, it's hateful, it's like not fun, but you be the one take the notes. If you're in a meeting with clients, you take the notes. At the end, you can, actually you can write down whatever you want and you can mail it afterwards. Said we discussed it, don't do that. That's the honesty part, remember? Um, so yeah, but that way you kind of control the narrative a bit. Uh, you have the control about what the discussion was all about. At the end of the meeting, put it in a mail, nice mail, send it out. Customers love it because nobody likes taking notes. You took the notes, so it's an extra service. On the other hand, you kind of control the narrative a bit and you can skew it a bit. But again, keep it a bit ethical there. Okay, cool. And that's just stuff, the yoga stuff, which is really important. Okay, cool. Hiring. I'm kind of blasting through it a bit. Okay, this is the fun part, right? Everyone, whoever hired someone. Okay, not a lot. Who wants to be more involved in the hiring stuff? Okay, cool. Why? Okay, cool. Okay. That's also a big thing. When you just start recently hiring people, you would hire everyone because it's fun and they're cool and then they're a bit stressed or that's not what this is all about, but it's an extra tip. Like be a bit more critical actually, which is a bit sad. Okay, brain teasers. Okay, like I assume a lot of you have a job. But which there's obviously no shame if you don't have a job. But you've been through a hiring process. You might have been through a hiring process before. So you've been through this stuff. And brain teasers, who of you have done a brain teaser? Nobody. Okay, two people have done. Really? Really? But never in a hiring process. Okay, cool. Just pretend that you have done them before. Did you like him? No, obviously no, because you all hated them. Really, never. Okay, cool. That's nice. Okay, but why is it still a thing? It's a safety net, and this is really something really strange in our industry. Uh, you can perfectly hire people. I've done it before that are really good in conversation. You can sit with them. You can have a deep conversation about technology. You hire them, and it turns out they can't program. And I'm not talking about can't program like they can't like really deep. No, no, I'm actually talking about can't program. Like that's not going to happen. The keyboard stuff. Uh, so that's actually a thing, and that's why brain teasers are a thing because it's kind of a safety net. Is it a good safety net? Let's find out. Yes. Yes. Spoilers. So, okay, what are my options here? Say, for example, someone in the audience wants some examples. So I've made a quick suggestion of some options here. Okay, so the first one might be familiar. It was really popular like 10, 15 years ago. which obviously because Google started doing it. FizzBuzz. Who knows what FizzBuzz is all about? Okay, a few people. Okay, I'm just going to wrap it around quickly. FizzBuzz asks you to program a quick application that prints out 1 to 100. Every time it's divisible by 3, it says fizz after the number. Divisible by 5, it says buzz after the number. If it's divisible by 3 and 5, for example 15, it says fizzbuzz after the application, after the number. Okay. Would look kind of like this. Um, Disclaimer, I didn't code this. I took it from the internet. Why? Because if there is a fault in it, it's not mine. Also, for example, like this. See? It's not my code. So here you can go to it like you just do a loop for 100, fizzbuzz, and otherwise a break. So this is an option you could do to ask your people. This is could be seen as basic programming. Um, this is another option you can do. You can ask very smart questions to see how the candidate thinks. This is something Google also introduced 10 years ago. Questions like, how many golf balls are there in New York? That kind of stuff. It used to be really big. How many dishwashers are there in Chicago? How many? It's stuff like that. The idea here is that you don't expect actually an answer. You ask the candidates to think out loud and you walk with them through the project. So, okay, how many people, how many golf balls are there in New York? I don't know. How many people do live in New York, you think? Guesstimates, I don't know, 2 million? 10 million? Which makes a lot more sense. How many percent of those, I wouldn't be hired. How many percent of those people would be golfers? I don't know, 5? See, that's the kind of questions you're looking for. Like think with them. And how many golf balls does the golfer have? I don't know. I've never played golf. Too poor. Um, does he live in New York? But officially? No. Oh yeah, that's also a but yeah, the golf balls are in New York. See, that's the kind of discussion that you have with your candidates. Then, um, that's an option for interview questions. By the way, we're going to evaluate them later. We're just now going through them. Um, Gilded Rose. Does anyone know what Gilded Rose is? And it's really cool because it's really niche. Gilded Rose is a small application that's on GitHub. I'm going to share the link in a minute. I'm going to share the link now, which is a small application. It's two classes. It's a big one class, and then there's a second smaller class, and it's really messy, ugly code. It's really interwoven. It's really spaghetti code. It's really, really horrible. But it has the cool thing about it that it has a really nice test suite about it. And you ask your interviewee, yeah, to refactor the code, make it better. Just you don't say how you should make it better, but just make it better. And then you discuss the results. And the cool thing about it is it has a nice test suite, so you can always see that it's still working, and then it's nice for the person to work with it. This is a link to Emily Bash. She has a GitHub repository with Gilded Rose in like I think 50 or 60 different languages, and they keep it up to date. So if you're a PHP developer, you're a Drupal developer, if you're a Java developer, if you're a Go developer, you can just find examples of Gilded Rose there to give your as an exercise. Show us some open source work. That's also one that often comes back with the obvious caveat that you need to have open source work. Alternative, create a PR to some open source work. Could also work because there are some really nice ones, because then you can see what the candidate is interested in. If they make a pull request to Drupal core, you know they're like really into the Drupal stuff. If they're into like Drupal search, then you know that they're interested in search stuff, or into Ray, which then you're a Laravel developer. Okay, and that's the last one is a controversial one. Talk to them like a human being. Let's see how that works out. Okay, so I made a cool graph kind of thing. It's not a graph, it's a diagram. Um, Up there are your options. So we have the options to the left. The top, which is called the features, is your technical abilities, your soft skills, and your potential growth. So I rated them as a personal thing. It's very personal, this one. So make up your own mind about this stuff. Fizzbuzz, for me, it gives like a bit of technical insight because you can see they can do the basic stuff. So it goes from zero is still gray to orange till green. Again, this is all personal, my interpretations here. It's nice to see that they can actually develop a bit. Also, take in mind if you ask someone to develop while in an interview, there's also the stress situation there. Some people are really bad in stress situations while coding, and it might not turn out. So take it with a bit of salt there. So Fizzbuzz gives you a bit of insight about technicalities. The how many golf balls in New York kind of stuff. Yeah, you can learn how they think a bit, but are you really going to learn anything from that? Like seriously? How many people? If you know how many people they live in New York, how is that going to impact how you're going to work with them? So personally, I don't really like it. I think it's a bit of an ego thing where you like to do the abstract questions and you run through them. I don't really don't like it all that much. Gilded Rose, I would think it's really nice because you get a lot of insights into the refactoring stuff. I think refactoring is one of the most important things about software development. Um, it's kind of like the biggest part of the job, let's be honest, is refactoring code. Um, and you also get the growth potential. How do they refactor? Is it important that they go to value objects? Do they do async stuff, or do they make smaller make smaller functions, methods? Do they separate more classes? Do they add even tests? And you can see how they commit code in Git. Do they write nice commit messages? That kind of stuff. Show some open source work again. You get even a deeper insight into uh, the soft skills because you can see how they approach a pull request, how they approach communication with the developers. Is it going to be merged? Is it not going to merge? How is the person going to react if it's not going to be merged? Stuff like that. I really like it. But again, what if there's no, if they don't have PR stuff? Um, Make a PR to do open source stuff. It's really cool. You get the extra benefit that you have a deeper insight in what kind of software they like, what kind of features, what kind of tools they really like to use. So that's a nice alternative. And then the last one, which is I think my favorite one, obviously, is like have an actual conversation. Sit down with them. See how they think. What are they interested in? What tools do they like to use? Do they go to meetups? Do they not go to meetups? Do they write blog posts? Have they read some cool blog posts? You can learn a lot about this stuff. Again, this is a bit of the caveat. You can talk a lot about technical stuff, but at the end of the day, if you never touch a keyboard, if you never show anything of code, then it can be a bit of a. So personally, on my end, what I like to use is I do the actual conversation kind of stuff. And if I am the end, I'm still not entirely sure about the technicalities, then I would go to the gullet roast. Always keep in mind if you're doing an interview with people, is we live in an industry where it's kind of a buyer's market. So the people you're interviewing is not interviewing only with you. You're not Google, except if you are, then you are Google. But um, so it's really important to know that like they have 5, 10, 15 other options here. And it's as much an interview for them as it is for you. Uh, so if you give them a big task, like do a huge application and do a front end and a back end and write a little ton of documentation about it, a lot of people will just say, yeah, okay, I'm just going to the competition now. Good luck with that stuff. So keep that in mind. I'm not saying don't do that because it's also a bit, but you also want to give, let them show off a bit their code, but in the end, it's a buyer's market. So, okay. And the trust, honesty, context stuff. Don't promise them things you can't provide. If you uh, let's take it maybe in the next slide, which is the questions. um, so the trust, honesty, and context stuff. Don't promise them a company that you don't have. Don't promise them a growth path you don't provide. Be honest with them, because otherwise they might leave you in like half a year, and then you invested half a year of wages, training, equipment, and whatever on them, and then they're just gone. And then it would be easier to do your interview maybe a bit longer, a bit more honest, and maybe lose the initial candidate instead of losing them half a year, maybe a year later. So that was me. Thank you for listening. You can find me on the socials again. I have some credit slides. Uh, and some amazing sponsors that helped bring this stuff together. So thank you to Calibrate, Drop Solid, and the other gold sponsors. So I'll take the questions now. Thanks. Hey,
It's not working. Ah, it's working. Yeah.
it's lovely.
Uh, Not quite a question, but maybe just I don't know, insight that I had myself. Is if you interview junior or meteor developers from what you describe, um, I found it interesting to understand that they most of the time don't have a notion how the internet works. As in, I asked them a question about, for example, how to cache invalidation, for example, the Cloudflare stuff or any of that. Um, I didn't see it in your list on how to evaluate how well they have a deep understanding of actually the end product that they're producing. I saw the software refactoring. I saw indeed that part. Do you have any advice on how to handle, yeah, that kind of knowledge, because it's tricky?
Yes, yes, definitely. I once interviewed with a big company that makes a big PHP framework, and they asked me to write a fluid dynamic system. I asked, "Are we going to use a fluid dynamic system in our job?" They didn't reply. The thing is, okay, if you ask a junior developer, how does caching work? How does the deeper knowledge of the stack work? Is that part of their job? Are they going to write caching engines? I understand why you want them to have a notion of it, but should they really know it? Or is it like a nice extra?
Well, it depends. If you work for bigger websites and that kind of stuff, there's always some caching involved. There's maybe Cloudflare involved. There's maybe worldwide network involved. Even understanding that the internet is based on the speed of light as a maximum
Hmm.
could already be there's like a thinking exercise. Um, but that's mostly in the interviews that I had is where people kind of like were overwhelmed, and I was just curious. Okay, maybe it's okay to leave that out as a context. Okay, later
Okay.
perhaps. Um, can you expect it from a meteor? Can you only expect this from a senior? And then how much of the infrastructure can you expect from people towards being a bit multiple, like multi-skilled? That's a tricky balance, I think.
It's definitely a tricky balance. And I agree, it's a nice talking point to gauge deeper understanding of those things, but I wouldn't make it a make or break situation, because if you're going to set up a caching, or if you're running it to the speed of light limited limits of caching and network connectivity, to be honest, if you run into it, you're going to look it up. So you're saving 5 seconds there. I don't know. It's a nice talking point, but I wouldn't make it a make or break thing. And the end of the day, again, this is my experience and my understanding of that stuff. So maybe it's even a better option. I don't know. Oof.
Well, honestly, I would wanted just to play with this funny Red Bull. No, well, I think well, it's more of a comment than a question, and it kind of is related to what previous question was. You're kind of talking in absolute terms, like this is good, this is bad.
Okay.
No, it is. Well, I would say it is not correct. It is something that you have some say goal, project, whatever. What is good for one, it's suitable. Is like definitely not suitable for another. So if you have like a short-term project and short-lived application, that's one thing. You don't care about like speed of light, internet, whatever. You just hire people. They do their whatever they do, and you're done. If you're kind of targeted at some like really ambitious goals, team building, that there are like absolutely different, say, points. So you, uh, there are many points there, down to the how people like understand, talk to each other. Like it's not like you hire someone for to work in a team, and it may happen that just people cannot, like some people they suddenly cannot stand each other in this team. Like they're both good developers, but they cannot work together. This is, but for short-term project, this done like this has no like importance or whatever. Uh,
I would argue it has. If people aren't able to cooperate with each other in a team, that's you can have the best hire in the world sitting in front of you, and if that person is not a good fit for your team cultural wise, it's going to be a nightmare. Your project will never finish. So it's more important to hire for your team than the potential of what your team can become, I think.
yeah, yes, that's one of. But other than if I mean, if I don't don't overtaking the time and your talk, uh, so in some for some position, they really it's important how person thinks. But for other like to doing some styling, I don't do styling, so that's why I'm thinking that it's not that important that someone like thinks too much. It just will slow down the work, and so yeah, my point is that don't say it's good, that's bad, but which is like fits your particular like project goal or whatever.
Okay, thank you. Oh, yeah, behind you. Oh,
Yay.
nice catch.
Okay. Okay. Hi. I wanted to add something because I thought I saw a slide about context. I was like, yes, now he's gonna say what I'm thinking, and you didn't. So I was thinking because
Shit, I missed that one.
I'm not a team lead, but for me, context of the project is really important for my motivation. And it's funny because you also had a slide about motivation. For me,
Same one.
those are linked because as a developer, if I don't understand what the functionality that I'm creating is good for, I don't see the value and I'm not as motivated. Because in my head, when I'm done with something and I know what it's for, then in my head I can see the customer using it and being really happy with it, and that brings me joy. So that's a really important thing for me as a developer. So I thought I'd share that with the world. Other team leads might want to know about that. And one more thing, the beautiful, fast,
Yeah,
cheap
yeah, yeah, yeah.
diagram. I had one remark about that because you're right that I think you're right that customers are mostly looking for easy and cheap. But I think the uh, good part it can be important when maybe if something doesn't work correctly, it might cost the customer a lot of money
Definitely.
or legal problems, then it becomes very important. So I think it's important to uh, indeed be what you said, empathetic with the customer, but
Hmm.
also in the way that you think from their position. Like, what would it cost them if this wouldn't work, and explain that to them, maybe what the risks are. I
Yeah,
think that's also an important thing.
yeah, I agree. Thank you.
Thanks for the talk.
Yeah.
So this is not a comment, but more like a question.
Okay,
Uh,
cool.
I was intrigued by how you talked about the position of the team lead in respect to the rest of the team, like not being really above, but more beside. Um, and I know some companies have some kind of a hybrid situation going where someone is partly programming, but also partly leading a couple of colleagues. Um, do you have an opinion or a view on that? Does it work or does it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Most companies actually have that,
Yeah.
because it's otherwise a very expensive role. Depends on the size, scale, and what your company is at and where they want to be. Do I like it? I don't know. Personally, I would it depends what the percentages are. I think it's really important for someone in a team leading position that's supporting developers that they still have a bit of boots on the ground kind of situation where they still know what the developers are talking about. So don't really got caught up in the entire social stuff and helping stuff. So I think it's important, be it as a day job kind of thing or be it as a hobby kind of thing. But I think it's important that they still have like notions of how development goes.
Yeah.
But again, that depends on the size of your team. If you have a team of 60 people, well, good luck. Good luck. Be doing
Yeah.
development and coaching those people and assisting those people at the same time. If your team's like 4 people and you're the team lead, well, I'm going to assume that you're also developing at that point. So
Yeah.
it
But it can
depends.
also be difficult, I guess. I mean, if you like one day you're their colleague and the next day you're like doing negotiations about a salary, for instance.
Yeah, that's always a bit of um, a hard part. Again, you're not their boss. So depends on how they're structured. Like often team leads aren't specifically doing the negotiation of the prices and stuff. If that's the case, it could be the case. Then there's always a bit of that awkward zone where you can't be too much of a friend and you always have a bit of a distance, which is often a very hard balance to take. But it's part of the job and it's not easy, I'm afraid. Yeah. So there needs to be a bit of a separation there. But if you're always also coding there, there's also some differences in am I going to do a code review of my boss's code? It's a bit weird. How blunt can I be if the code's really bad? That's awkward. That's really awkward. So, but those are things with if you do good communication, it shouldn't be a problem. Realistically, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
So that's a hard part of the job.
Okay.
But
Thanks.
thank you. It's great question. Ah, so we're done? Okay. Yeah, I think we're out of time. Thank you so much for your attention and the great questions. And I'll see you in the bar, I guess.
Mijn teamlead is niet mijn salaris onderhandelaar.
Nee.